Welcome back, Careblazer. I hate that I have to do this video today, but there are just way too many stories, way too many times this occurs, so I cannot ignore this topic anymore. Basically, what I want to talk about today is what to do if you find yourself the victim of an accusation that you have been abusing, neglecting, or exploiting your loved one with dementia. There are laws in place to make sure that older, vulnerable adults have laws to protect them from abuse and neglect and exploitation. In the United States, it's called Adult Protective Services. And the whole purpose is that they want to protect these vulnerable older adults from being the victim of abuse and of scams. Unfortunately, there are people out there who target older adults, especially older adults with dementia. It's horrible, but it's a fact. Now, while most information out there, the videos and the articles, focus on people who have done the abuse, I want to talk about what happens when you, the Careblazer, who has done nothing wrong whatsoever, who is sacrificing a lot to care for their loved one with dementia, all of a sudden finds himself being accused of being an abuser. Now, this is not that rare. It's actually quite common. If you think about it, you've got people with dementia who may not believe they have dementia. They may believe you're stealing their money, you're keeping them a prisoner, you're not letting them do things. So it's possible that your loved one is somebody who picked up the phone to call 911 or the police to say that you've been abusing them. Also, because your loved one with dementia might appear okay, it can be really hard for other people who come into your home or who talk with your loved one to understand why you have put so many safeguards in place. Those people might not understand why you're making sure they're never home alone, why you manage their finances, why you don't let them drive. And so those people might think they're doing the right thing by placing a report against you because they don't really understand the full picture. So I have worked with some people who have unfortunately been accused of harm to older adults or abuse or neglect or exploitation for an older adult when they've done nothing wrong whatsoever. So in case you ever find yourself in this position, I want to kind of go through some steps for you to keep in mind. The first 4 tips are what you can do to respond when you get accused of this, if you get accused of this. The 5th tip is actually something you can start doing right now that can help you if you ever do find yourself in this position. Tip number 1 is to stay calm. Although it's understandably a very upsetting situation, losing your temper or cool is not going to help anything. In fact, it can make things much worse by having people report on your short temper or anger issues. So take some deep breaths and stay calm. Tip 2, report the facts. Answer whatever questions the investigators are asking. Do it calmly, do it openly. Don't show frustration or anger at the questions being asked. Remember, the person talking to you is just doing their job. Number 3, keep perspective. Unfortunately and fortunately, there needs to be an overwhelming amount of evidence that abuse or neglect or exploitation has occurred. The majority of cases that get reported go unsubstantiated. So for example, in 2016 in Arizona, less than 1% of the reports were substantiated, which means most reports, 99% of reports, were just unfounded. Now, this is good news for you because it means there's going to need to be so much evidence to prove that there was wrongdoing, and that won't be the case for you. However, it's often pretty frustrating and unfortunate for the people who are being abused and neglected and exploited, who continue to be at risk because there just wasn't enough evidence. I know that in all the years that I've been practicing, which is over 10 years, and the reports that I've made to Adult Protective Services, which unfortunately I've had to, and I've felt it in my bones, I've seen things, I've made my reports, and as far as I know, nothing has happened with any of those reports. They were never substantiated, which to me was really infuriating. So, but for you, it can be a bit of relief or calming just to remind yourself that there really does need to be a big, overwhelming evidence for you to be found guilty of those accusations. The numbers are in your favor. Remind yourself you've done nothing wrong, and that just because you've been reported doesn't mean that you're guilty. Number 4, this might be hard to do in the moment, especially if you found yourself the victim of, being accused of being an abuser, but see the good in this system. It is actually a really good thing that, at least in the US, there is a system in place that if an older, vulnerable adult is being mistreated or abused, there is a system that's going to look into it, right? So that is a very good thing. Dementia caregiver or not, you could be accused of anything at any point. We could all be accused of anything at any point. We cannot live in fear. We have to trust that the information is going to come out, and all you can do is be calm and go through the process and give whatever information the investigators are asking for. The good news is, when it comes to Adult Protective Services, the workers are well versed in dementia. The majority of cases that come through are about mistreating older adults with dementia, and they know that a lot of times people with dementia can mistakenly believe that money's being stolen from them, that they're being held against their will, that they're able to do things that they're not able to do. So you will not be the first time the worker has ever heard of somebody being accused of doing something that they're not doing. That said, when a report comes in, Adult Protective Services is going to follow up on that report. And when they follow up on that report, what they're basically doing is just an initial finding, just to see what's going on. And if there's not hardly any evidence there, then that case can be dismissed. It doesn't mean that every single case that's reported is going to lead into this big investigation. A lot of times it just gets dismissed right away after that investigator goes and checks it out and talks to the caregiver and goes into the home and sees that there's not a lot of evidence, that things seem okay. Then many times it can just drop right there. It doesn't go on this full investigation. Now, tip number 5, I think that this can be helpful for you to start doing right now in case you ever find yourself in this position. Keep a journal or a log, a behavior log. So I've mentioned this before, and I want to stress it here. Keeping a log of your loved one's behaviors, challenges, what they've done that day, what you have done that day, like taking them to a doctor's appointment, grocery shopping, documenting the weird interaction that you had with the store clerk after your loved one told the store clerk you stole all their money. Like, it's just nice to have something to go back to, proof and evidence to help jog your memory, and also help if there's more information needed for the investigation. It's really challenging to remember everything that you've been doing for your loved one. It's really challenging to remember the days when you took them to the appointments, how your loved one responded, and it's especially difficult when you're under the pressure of being investigated. I like the idea of a behavior log because it helps caregivers determine patterns, see patterns of behaviors, and it makes it more easy to be able to intervene and make changes. But it's also great in this case too, to just be able to go back in the middle of an investigation, open up the behavior log, and kind of help refresh your memory. Careblazer, I hope that none of you ever need this video, but if you do, here it is. Please know you won't be the first one ever accused of wrongdoing when you've done no wrong. Have faith, understand that the majority of cases are unsubstantiated, and that you are not the first person accused of this, and that the people doing the investigations understand that with dementia, these kinds of things just happen. It's a side effect of being a caregiver sometimes, okay? All right, Careblazer, I'll be back next week, hopefully with something a little less intimidating, a topic less intimidating than the one I just did now, okay? Take care of yourself. Bye.